In the deepest hours before dawn, when the corridors of Silvercross Corporate Tower echoed hollow like a forgotten cathedral, a single mother named Alina worked silently, mopping the marble floors. She was exhausted, hungry, and shivering from the cold drafts that swept in through the loading dock. She didn't know that in the next few minutes, she was going to kneel beside a dying billionaire on the polished floor of the 39th floor office and make a decision that would shatter the life she'd been trapped in for years and replace it with something she never believed she deserved. She didn't know that one desperate kiss, one she gave not out of love, but out of pure instinct to save a life, would make her the center of a storm she could never have imagined. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and life turning around when you least expect it, then before we go deeper, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. It helps these stories reach more hearts like yours. Alina had been working as a janitor in the skyscraper for 8 months, ever since her ex-husband abandoned her and their little daughter, Maya, leaving them with dead and nothing but a single suitcase. She took the night shift because it paid slightly more, and because childcare was cheaper in the night. Every evening, she dropped Maya off with her elderly neighbor, kissed her tiny forehead, and promised she'd come back with bread, milk, and hope. But hope had been running thin for weeks, and Alina could feel herself breaking from the inside, yet she refused to show it. She had endured enough humiliation in life to know that survival meant hiding your wounds. The night everything changed was a stormy one. Rain lashed the windows in furious sheets, thunder rumbled through the concrete, and the lights flickered in the hallways. Alina pushed her cleaning cart through a corridor she rarely entered, the executive floor. It was always empty at night, because powerful people rarely stayed past sunset unless something was terribly wrong. That night, something was. She found him lying on the floor near his corner office, his hand pressed against his chest, his breath shallow and ragged. Alexander Hale, the billionaire owner of the entire building and the man whose signatures fueled half the city's economy, was crumpled like a fallen statue, his face pale and drenched in sweat. Alina froze, panic filling her veins. She was nobody, just a janitor in an oversized uniform, with cracked shoes and trembling hands. But she remembered the CPR training video they once showed during a staff meeting, the one she never thought she would actually need. She dropped to her knees, her heart pounding louder than the thunder outside. She checked his pulse, weak. His breath, faltering. She started chest compressions, her hands shaking, tears slipping down her cheeks because she was terrified she was too late. When his breathing stopped completely, instinct took over. She leaned forward, sealed her mouth over his, and gave him her breath, praying that life would flow back into him. Another breath, another, and on the third, he jolted, gasping violently. His eyes opened just enough to see her blurred face above his. He whispered something she couldn't understand before losing consciousness again. Paramedics arrived minutes later, but those minutes felt like an eternity carved into her soul. They rushed him away, barely even noticing her, leaving her alone in the silent corridor, trembling from head to toe. She thought that was the end of it. She thought no one would care what happened. After all, she was invisible to the world. She didn't know that the security cameras had captured everything. By morning, her name was on every supervisor's list. She was summoned to an office where executives stared at her like she was a ghost who had wandered in by accident. They told her Mr. Hale wanted to see her once he woke up. She almost refused. What would a billionaire want with a janitor? She feared they would fire her for touching him, for even breathing near a man whose watch alone cost more than her apartment's yearly rent. But she went because she had no choice. When she stepped into his hospital room, she was shaking so badly she had to grip the edge of the door. Alexander Hale was sitting up in bed, weakened but alive. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Not with arrogance, not with cold detachment, but with a strange softness that felt frightening because Alina wasn't used to being seen like that. He thanked her in a quiet voice that didn't fit the powerful legend she'd heard about. He told her the doctors said she saved his life. Alina tried to brush it off, saying she did what anyone would do. But he shook his head slowly, telling her he knew most people would have hesitated, or worse, ignored a stranger in the dark. What she didn't know was that Alexander had been going through his own private hell. The empire he built had drained his soul, cost him relationships, and left him surrounded by sharks disguised as board members. No one had touched his life with genuine kindness in years. And now, a woman who cleaned floors without complaint had given him the most precious thing he had, his second chance. The next days changed everything. Alexander requested she be temporarily assigned to assist with some administrative work while he recovered. She was stunned, but when her supervisors insisted, she obeyed. Each morning, she brought Maya along, and the little girl would sit drawing quietly in a corner of the room. Alexander began talking to Alina, not about work, but about life, about their fears, their regrets, the things that broke them and the things they were still hoping for. Alina felt herself growing attached, even though she fought it. A billionaire and a janitor, it was an impossible bridge. She had learned to fear dreams because they usually shattered. But Alexander didn't keep a distance. He noticed things no one else ever had, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the way she looked at the world with a mixture of exhaustion and quiet strength, the way she always put Maya first even when she had nothing left to give. He admired her in a way she did not believe she deserved. Rumors began swirling in the building. Workers stared, supervisors whispered. Alina felt crushed under the weight of unwanted attention. She had no intention of being someone's charity case or scandal. She begged Alexander to end the temporary assignment, to let her go back to cleaning. But he refused gently, telling her she deserved better than the life she had been forced into. The turning point came one evening when she found him staring out of the large hospital window, the city stretching endlessly below. He looked fragile, almost broken. He confessed that he had been alone for too long, surrounded by people who wanted his money but never his soul. He told her she was the first person in years who had looked at him and seen a human being instead of a machine of wealth. And then he said something that made her knees weaken. He wanted to help her, not because she saved his life, but because he believed she deserved happiness. Real happiness, the kind she had been denied. Alina cried that night, quietly, painfully, with tears she'd held back for years. She didn't know what to do with kindness offered so freely. She didn't know how to accept the possibility of a future that wasn't filled with struggle. She wanted to step back, to run, to hide behind her broom and mop where she felt safe. But she also wanted to step forward, to believe. Slowly, life began to change. Alexander arranged scholarships for Maya's schooling, but only after making sure Alina agreed wholeheartedly. He paid off the crushing hospital bills she'd been drowning under since her daughter's birth, but he made it look like a corporate support initiative, so she wouldn't feel indebted. He offered her training courses and a position in the company's community outreach division, something meaningful, something where she could help others the way she always wanted. And the more time they spent together, the more undeniable the connection became. Not a fairy tale rush, not glittering fantasy, but a real, fragile, courageous bond born from shared scars. Alexander healed through her presence. Alina healed through his sincerity. And Maya, bright, innocent Maya, sparked a joy in Alexander he hadn't felt since childhood. Months later, when Alexander had fully recovered and resumed work, the company held a celebration in the grand lobby. Cameras flashed, executives applauded, but the real moment came afterward, when the crowd dispersed, and Alexander asked Alina to walk with him through the same corridor where she had once found him dying. He stopped in that quiet hallway, looked at her with an expression full of gratitude and something deeper, and told her that the moment she gave him breath, she unknowingly gave him life in more ways than one. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her eyes said everything. The world didn't magically become perfect. There were still challenges, judgments, and moments of self-doubt. But something fundamental had changed. Alina no longer walked through life alone, exhausted, and invisible. Alexander didn't rescue her. She rescued herself. All he did was open the door she had never dared to approach. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Your support helps keep these emotional stories alive.